Riri. Dafür mir meine Wünsche so wie Genie. Yalla, yalla, Habibi. Du kannst mir wachsen so wie Siri. Du bleibst so gleich bei mir, Riri. Dafür mir meine Wünsche so wie Genie.
Yalla, ja, Habibi. Ich hab nur Bilder von dir in meinem Kopf. Panini, süß und exotisch, Kiwi. Du willst jeden um den Finger. Jeden Typen muss er Nachbarschaft, dass du den Kopf verdrehst. Sag mal, wie machst du das? Ich weiß, die anderen Weiber hier sind abgefuckt, weil du eine gute Kiste einfach so ich weiß, auf deinem Instagram-Foto steht dein Hintern im Fokus. Doch was kein Typ für dich auffällt, der dich aushält, denn du verdienst Aufgeld. Du bist einfach eine Bombe. Und für die meisten unerreichbar wie die Sonne. Du bist wie diese Olive im Martini. Wenn du nicht da bist, dann fehlt was Martini.
Yalla, yalla, Habibi. Du kannst mir wachsen so wie Siri. Du bleibst so gleich bei mir, Riri. Dafür mir meine Wünsche so wie Genie. Yalla, yalla, Habibi. Du kannst mir wachsen so wie Siri. Du bleibst so gleich bei mir, Riri. Dafür mir meine Wünsche so wie Genie.
Ich gebe dir, was du brauchst, sprich es einfach aus und ich werde da sein, Habibi. Ich will, dass du mir vertraust, ich will dich wie ein Traum und ich lass dich auf mich auf.
Yalla, yalla, Habibi. Du kannst mir wachsen so wie Siri. Du bleibst so gleich bei mir, Riri. Dafür mir meine Wünsche so wie Genie. Yalla, yalla, Habibi. Du kannst mir wachsen so wie Siri. Du bleibst so gleich bei mir, Riri. Dafür mir meine Wünsche so wie Genie.
So yeah, I let the joint and dipshit with his malware on his phone, whatever. Oh, it still involves a security hole of YouTube, doesn't it?
Und der Koffer ist verborgen. Mit Date am Arm in der U-Bahn fahren. Guck mal diese Ukraine und Araber. 20 Tage wie U-Bahn im Hurakan. Und der Koffer ist verborgen. Mit Date am Arm in der U-Bahn fahren. Guck mal diese Ukraine und Araber. Berlin Gran Turismo, viel in der Disco. Marlboro Rot, Aschenbecher, Monte Cristo. Moosbund, die Numare. Sam Rouge. Ficke Bitches in Budapest, mich an den Tisch. Ich steh sofort Ordnung. Echte Legende, so wie George Foreman. Bunker war aus Bolivien. Kokain und die Ufer steht viel. Bla, KPT, wir sind keine Mitläufer. Spotify brennt, Walla ohne Klickkäufer. Schlüssel fallen aus dem nagelneuen GTS. Edelflex, der Garten ist mit Schnee bedeckt. Hemd vom Burgener, Schuh von Cavalli. Samra Harami in Paris, die Cavani. SQP und ich komme in MS-Jogger. Das sind 500.000 US-Dollar. Und der Koffer ist verborgen. Mit Date am Arm in der U-Bahn fahren. Und der Koffer ist verborgen. Mit Date am Arm in der U-Bahn fahren. Guck mal diese Ukraine.
Ist komfort besoffen in einem Gucci-Jogger. Maske Snyder, ja, er ist Killer, ja, bra. Und er sitzt wie mein Cousin Gitter. Papa ist gegangen, das hat mir nicht wehgetan. Ich muss mit Abiat den Benzer durch die Gegend fahren. Keine Schulden, guck auf jeden Cent, jeden Gramm. Du kannst dich nicht verstecken, aber ich komme an jeden Rand. Kapital ist festgegangen. Und du bist mehr Prozente ab als Ladekabel. Klingelt mein Ticker, beste das, zwei Dinger, eine Leg wie mein Finger.
20 Stunden Europa in einem Hurakan. Und der Koffer ist verborgen. Mit Date am Arm Mom in der U-Bahn fahren. Guck mal, diese Ukraine und Araber. 20 Minuten in der Mutter. Und der Kopf aus Corona. Mit der Mom in der U-Bahn fahren. Guck mal, diese Ukraine und Araber.
If you rep the team, die, know you'll set me high. Big shots, nigga, rep your block. Yeah, best be holding your tongue. The bloody north where the soldiers is from. Team die, know you'll set me high. Big shots, nigga, rep your block. You ain't from where I can't best be holding your tongue. The bloody north where the soldiers is from.
3, 5, 7 to Mac 11, C7, cock your weapon and start yelling if you rep 187. I got niggas in the front ready and ready to split you down the middle just like a blunt, so walk without with me. The Lord will not forgive me for shaking up your kidney, cause you faking and Disney. My niggas lippy and shifty, pissy, really icky, shiggy. We don't give a wiggy, what really, really trying to kill the city like crack in the 80s. I'm ready to burn in Hades, my doctor's infected with rabies. Not even my barber can fade me, you niggas is crazy. Fuck up, fight and learn what these talents do. You can be as cuckoo as you want, I'm unbalanced too. Thanks to the God that I'm coming to rally you, massive. Splatter you, run you off of your avenue while I laugh at you. The money start dizzy, demented Rogers. My pigment, out the appearance, igneous, run you up the district.
If you rep the team, die, know you'll set me high. Big shots, nigga, rep your block. Shit.
Disrespectful whenever I lift the pencil. I'm hoping the shit offends you. I'm fisting lesbian bitches while spitting on this easy taste. Nimm dieses Kapital laut auf den Boden. Schein runter, auch in den Ofen. Ich bin am heizen und aus ist der Ofen. Auto so laut, du stehst auf von den Toten. Bei diesem Tempo kannst du nur auf Gott vertrauen. Und ich hoffe, keine stoppt mich wegen dieser schwarzen Tasche da im Kofferraum. Ab nach rechts, weil ein Heirat angeflogen kommt. Und ich werde immer kleiner da am Horizont. 4 Uhr nachts aus der Abus, AMG ab und Brabus. Mit 700 Pferden König Artus, bis der Kommissar fragt, was denn da los? Um 4 Uhr nachts auf der Abus, AMG ab und Brabus. Mit 700 Pferden König Artus, ich bin dann mal weg, ist mein Status.
Brabus, auf Kopf, auf das Gas, du fragst nicht, was muss da los? Ciao, ich fahr durch die Nacht vom Rotlicht am Kopf bis Bahnhof, ich kann stoppen, jetzt Bonus Richtung Garus. Im Radio läuft Zero Beat auf die Babo. Sitze für Geld, rot, die Schnaufe liegt im Nase groß. Ich hab keinen Schulabschluss. Brauch eine Menge harte Drogen. Der Blitzer macht einen Schnauz für mich, dann 70 Jahre auf so. Plötzlich Verfolgungsjagd, Kripo hinterm Marsch und so. Doch der Kommissar kommt Blasen, gehen mit seinem Omega auf. Ich schreib eigene Wand und setzt vor einem geilen Magenmut. Ich ging hier auf den Straßen rum, nicht im Gymnasium.
4 Uhr nachts auf der Abus, AMG ab und Brabus. Mit 700 Pferden König Artus, bis der Kommissar fragt, was denn da los? Um 4 Uhr nachts auf der Abus, AMG ab und Brabus. Mit 700 Pferden König Artus, ich bin dann mal weg, ist mein Status.
GTS wie schon Gardasee, jede Serpentine trifft mir mein Führerschein, Baby, der Grund, warum ich nicht kippe. Holen sie mich am Kudamm raus, rechts halten, Soundtest, Modus im Büro, du denkst, es landet ein Raumschiff. Hab den Anwalt mal gefragt, was soll ich machen wegen Punkten, ohne Witz. Er meinte, trag so Maske wie ein Kumpel, Pepper pimpt mir einen Diesel zum AMG, das ist wie Zauberei. Bring mir das bei und ich mach Gold auf seine Haufen Scheiße. Autoswap-Business mit deiner Monatskasse, Digga, ich kann jetzt die Sachen packen, durch Europa fahren, rollen bis zum Donnerkreuz, riesiges Glühen, Eierton, Esser, Pumpe, Cruisen, von massive Töne jeden Tag. 4 Uhr nachts auf der Abus, AMG ab und Bravus, mit 700 Pferden König Artus, bis der Kommissar fragt, was denn da los? Um 4 Uhr nachts auf der Abus, AMG ab und Bravus, mit 700 Pferden König Artus, ich bin dann mal weg, ist mein Status.
Ja, super. Und lächeln. Perfekt.
Du möchtest dich fühlen wie ein Star vor der Kamera? Dann komm zu Picture People Fotostudios. Picture People.
So the app is working to the point where I can share with you the link to the station I cannot tune into. That's helpful. It's not tagged.
So his attempts to mount on the females will be an indication that the females are on it. And then the scientists will come and do the embryo transfer.
As northern and southern white rhinos have mated in the past and produced hybrid offspring, Thomas Hildebrand is almost certain the embryos will develop naturally.
We are very confident that our embryos have the capability to implant. So I think we must be very unlucky if there's no success with the car. I can't believe that.
By themselves.
Despite having all the genetic ingredients and the means to make a northern white.
You gotta let the American chicken and beef and pork farming industries get a hold of this rhino DNA, and you will see so much that legalized rhino meat, and there'll be a bucket of fried rhino place on every fucking corner, but they won't go extinct. Look at all the hormones and everything. You guys don't know what you're doing. They've been doing it for decades. You're doing this backwards.
My expectation is that will probably drop by half.
Now, Stephen Farrell says companies like his also weren't given enough time to prepare for this program, so they weren't able to hire enough staff to keep up with the demand for home evaluations. In Vertitech's case, they're booking into the fall.
It's horrible.
You have only 2 females, but we are actually closer to saving them than we were 6 years ago.
Wait. No, you're not.
Humans nearly erased them from our world. They are magnificent creatures, and we now have a tool in our hand to make.
The Russians are bringing back all sorts of.
She might even give us some coffee.
Well, these Phoebes ain't exactly the most hospitable folks I ever come across.
No, maybe.
Population in the wild and hopefully even roam free, but we have to go step by step.
One of the steps will be to use other advances in medical science. Although the pool of sperm samples is limited to a few individuals, They also have the skin cells of 12 unrelated male northern white rhinos in their freezer banks. Using stem cell techniques, it's now possible to reprogram these cells to become sperm and eggs. It means in the future, they may be able to produce embryos with enough genetic variety for a healthy herd.
This approach is very ambitious,
And you can make clones, so the clones, the American
chance to be successful.
Rhino Meat Farming Association, but they'll call it something different. They're like the Rhino Preservation Society of America.
It tells checking the overall body.
They'll just happen to own every fucking fried rhino meat restaurant in the country.
If we didn't try to save the northern white rhino, they would definitely be gone.
We'll just call them North American white rhinos.
We did everything we
could. You want white meat or dark? What about if they want dark rhino meat?
In the near future, we will have some baby northern white rhinos.
No, we'll be like 10 years into this, but like, oh, coming out now, dark rhino meat. Wait, what? Deep fried at your local rhino meat by the bug.
Good night.
That's it for this episode of People Fixing the World. Our email address is peoplefixingtheworld@bbc.co.uk.
And talking about how you're not good at it. And you're not even good at talking about how you're not good at it. How did you end up on BBC, motherfuckers?
Are employed to steer young offenders away from a life of crime. Until then.
What? You could have skipped all your failures with the white rhino thing, so I think my idea is better, and it'll never take off because you won't let it. You guys will stomp on that idea.
Distribution of the BBC World Service in the U.S. is made possible by American Public Media with support from Indeed.
It's like the cloning goats and bullshit. Why? Because why do we need more goats that are exactly the same as the goats we got, or lambs, whatever the fuck these things are? What happened to the Taco Bell duck? He's dead. You didn't clone him. Why?
Book appointments through the...
Did you freeze his body? Because you could do that with him. He's nice and small. You stick him in your own freezer. The backup generator. And backup freezer, just in case. Damn it.
Spotify Red, Craig Premium, Steak Black Medium, SLS Imperium, Harman Seed Telium, mit Taxi zum Achterle, kriminell hat Morde, bleib gerade, Cyklose, mein Glück wird Sensation, bleib Farbe Luigi, Schüsse in Gotham City, Tablette Rosa Magic, so wie Hello Kitty. Habe sitzen hier normal, Kiddies sitzen hier normal, look at Maske im Lokal,
Can you imagine watching Hello Kitty dubbed into German?
Der eine ist brillant, der andere geisteskrank.
One of these has to have news or something for us.
BBC News with Neil Nunes. Security forces in Myanmar's second city, Mandalay, have clashed with a local militia opposed to February's coup. The military junta said 4 protesters were killed and several soldiers injured during a raid on a house. Opponents of military rule have formed militias around Myanmar as the government seeks to crush dissent. Pakistan's Prime Minister Imran Khan says his country is willing to be a partner for peace in Afghanistan with the United States, but will no longer host American military bases. Writing in the Washington Post, Mr. Khan said Pakistan wouldn't again make the mistake of choosing between warring parties. Kabul has long accused Islamabad of supporting the Taliban. Hong Kong's most popular pro-democracy newspaper, Apple Daily, has shut down its English website operation after its assets were frozen by the authorities. As it did so, the territory's leader, Carrie Lam, warned local media not to,
15 fucking years ago,
subvert the government.
Webpage still
For the first time in 3 months, India's daily tally of new coronavirus infections has dropped below 50,000. The latest 24-hour figure is 42,000. India also administered a record 8 million COVID jabs on Monday.
No. You're not.
You're
not
going out. The neighborhood of Sheikh Jarrah has seen
something
clashes between Palestinians and Jewish residents and police who used tear gas, water cannon, and sponge-tipped bullets. Some Palestinian families who've lived there for decades face being evicted. Democratic and Republican voters in New York City head to the polls later for primaries to select their next mayoral candidates. Whoever is picked by the Democrats is likely to replace Bill de Blasio after the election later this year. And a new British study has found that drinking coffee is likely to reduce a person's risk of developing chronic liver disease.
Oh, for
BBC
fuck's
News.
sakes. Yeah, because you're drinking coffee instead of liquor and beer. That's all it is. Those people who are alcoholics don't drink coffee.
Computers.
You didn't really learn much.
And assess our vital signs.
In the morning, you wake up and you step on a scale, and that data is digitally connected to your healthcare system. And there are AI triggers that say it looks like you've gained 3 pounds in the last week. Increase the dose of your water pill.
But do we really want tech companies knowing our most intimate secrets?
Hey, I got a copy of a newspaper here with Sidewalk Labs. I showed it to you 100 times. Sidewalk Labs.
So that might be that they've had mental health treatment, or they might be concerned that information about whether they're at high risk of heart failure might be shared with an insurance company.
The future of healthcare, Business Daily.
No, they're not worried about that. They're worried about Facebook. Damn it, fuck the premiums. How are you going to get bitches when that goes up?
So, here we are. I'm looking at the integrated cognitive assessment on a tablet in front of me, a computer tablet, and we are typing in some of my basic details. So we've got the year of birth. There we are, 1967. I'm an old man. This is me having my cognitive capacity.
You're older than I'll ever get, you piece of shit.
A mobile computer game. Images flash in front of me, and as fast as I can, I've got to indicate with my thumb.
Fat people complaining about being fat. Old people complain about being old. Motherfucker, I'm gonna be both. I'm gonna lock you both in a room together, and I'm not gonna put no food in there. We'll solve everybody's problem.
Nice house.
We'll make the fat guy climb up on the top. You're gonna argue over who gets the top bomb. You gotta understand, there's no steps or ladder. There's these little metal things bolted to the wall, little flat square, like the footboards on a motorcycle, I guess. It's the closest thing to relate it to. And there's 2 of them. And without being, you're supposed to somehow climb up the wall and into a bed. I don't know how you're supposed to. I did it once and jumped down again. So fuck this. This is the jumping down part. My body can't take that.
Sort of cognitive impairment.
If getting out or finding food or something, man, climbing up those steps is easy. It's the jumping down after, especially like it's a bed. I'm supposed to wake up on that. I don't know, 5 feet off the ground.
There are things currently within medicine that would at least slow that down.
Absolutely. So currently, the best things that can be done when you are identified early are actually lifestyle factors. So these are what we call modifiable factors, which can really help to slow down the progression of the disease. And these are fairly common sense things like you sleep better, you eat better, you take more exercise, you reduce your alcohol intake, you stop smoking, these sort of things. But the important thing is to identify early.
So my results have come in. I mean, obviously, they were automatically in. This is on the tablet. And what is it saying?
So basically it's saying that you have a healthy brain head. So it's got a very, very low probability of any sort of impairment. Your speed was very consistent. Your accuracy varied a little bit. But this is largely because, as you would have noticed when you're doing the test, the images are not all the same. They have varying complexity. Some of those animals were a long way away. Exactly that. And also with more complicated backgrounds and so on. Your mouth up dead background. Very easy to see. Perhaps a forest scene with a small bird in it is much more difficult. In the short period of time your brain gets to decode this, it is much more difficult. So if you are impaired, you literally can't see that animal.
And how algorithmic is it, so to speak? I mean, obviously it's coming up with a percentage figure for me, which is pretty straightforward. I don't got the question right or wrong. There isn't much of an algorithm in that. Where does an algorithm come in?
Yeah, well, you have to understand that the data that you end up inputting into this system, it may just seem like speed and accuracy, but all of the images to which you've reacted are very, very different, and they have different mathematical properties. The combination of all of these is actually a very rich data set. Now, what we do with that is really what AI is very good at, which is looking for patterns in that. And the patterns that we look for are then compared to our very well diagnosed clinical population.
What is the plan with the UK NHS, the National Health Service, in terms of deployment of this tech?
They're part of the Five Eyes.
So we're already in use
all the information that the NSA collects. They're allowed to.
Now, what we want to happen
is sent through the Royal Canadian Navy, and it's already
the tool
mined
solves
by
a problem
Apple
that's really existing globally at the moment.
Anyway.
That early impairment
They've got
is just
you,
not
motherfucker, with that
What
Apple
we're saying
Watch
is we'd like to supply an objective sensitive tool that can be used as part of a regular health check, then it makes sure that people are identified early when they can be helped and have a huge impact on outcomes for patients.
They can determine who's most likely to survive and who gets the ICU bed.
Late diagnosis costs trillions of dollars every year in global healthcare.
Yeah. I mean, I suppose anybody, therefore, coming in for a simple procedure on any other thing, you just hand them a tablet and say, here, here's a game for you.
Exactly that. And that's one of the real strengths of our technology, is that it doesn't require to be supervised.
Will you be pinging this out to the general public? I mean, will I be able to download this onto my phone?
Well, actually, yes. So what I've showed you just here is the clinical version, which is regulatory approved. We also do have a smartphone version,
what's the public
which allows people to track their cognitive health in the same way that you would step on the scales or perhaps have a Fitbit or some sort of wearable device. That then empowers you to look after your own cognitive health. What's nice about that is reassuring the worried well. People who are worried they have an issue can be reassured by this. It's very
correct, sir.
Is something like this going to help in the study of the disease itself? In other words, is it going to accelerate the broad research dimension to discovering treatments?
Well, our technology definitely has the potential to contribute significantly to that for two reasons, really. One is the identification of patients at the early stage who have the best chance of responding to your treatment, but also for detecting small changes in cognition as a result of the program of therapy.
It's tough to test a new potential drug, let's say, for Alzheimer's, unless you know that you've got a control sample of people who might be developing that condition later anyway. They're the ones on whom you would test the drug.
Yes, you must pick up on these very early stage patients. And these trials are extraordinarily expensive. So they've to date been conducted on relatively late stage patients, and also using tools to detect
how's the one equal to the other?
Which are these pen and paper based tests, which are not very sensitive. They can't be taken very often. They're subject to all these language, education, and cultural biases. So yes, I think that hopefully we have a lot to add in this area.
Dr. Thomas Sawyer, well, the context here is a global healthcare system that is creaking. Spiraling drug costs and aging global population mean that $8 trillion, a tenth of all global GDP, is now being spent on care and treatments. It's a figure that is rising all the time. $80 trillion? I
didn't know that.
Is that thanks to smart technology,
how much of that is drug money? You don't count
the stuff we've just been hearing about. There are a whole range of ways that we may be able to offset those costs. Dr. Robert Wachter is a professor at the University of California in San Francisco, and he's the author of a book, The Digital Doctor.
If you think about healthcare, it is really a process of taking in data. Might be from your heart rate, might be your genes, might be you going to see a doctor and saying, I'm having chest pain, processing that, figuring out what's going on, labeling it with a diagnosis, figuring out the best thing to do, and then following you and tracking you and giving you a prognosis. And in a future world, an enormous amount of that could theoretically
Let me ask you, how much does a corrections officer get paid?
And it could be done more accurately with better information, better prognoses, better recommendations. So that is the hope.
Right. So the idea then is both for the discovery of new treatments, it could be cancer or whatever, diabetes, there could be things out there that we could find through the analysis of historic health data across large populations, for example. But then there's the second thing, which is your data, your personal data, which perhaps doctors, clinicians could remotely be monitoring in some way to help me have better outcomes.
Nosy bastards.
Yes, if you think about it, most of your healthcare now.
What a hypocrite. I sent him a video of me taking a shit in the morning. He flips the fuck out.
You may be feeling crummy for months, but it's not until you go and see your doctor for a 15-minute visit and they examine you and send off some laboratory tests. In a future world, a lot of that information will flow in automatically. Because your watch is wired, your toilet may be wired. You may get up in the morning and talk to your phone and say, last night I was coughing. The problem, of course, is if all of that data streamed automatically to your GP would quit by this afternoon. That massive data has sense in it, but the sense has to be made. And the way that we have figured out how to do that in the rest of our lives is by AI and having the computer help understand, are they going off the rails? Is something going wrong? Is a treatment working? What's their prognosis? What kind of recommendation to the patient will influence them most? It may be that you don't even know that you're sending in data, but in the morning you wake up and you step on a scale, and that data is digitally connected to your healthcare system. And there are AI triggers that say it looks like a patient with heart failure, for example. It looks like you gained 3 pounds in the last week, and you may see a recommendation on your phone to increase the dose of your water pill.
Right, and you're imagining a future world where you as the patient might be getting all kinds of digital doctor responses. In other words, not a physical. You would be saving yourself time and money by not having to actually see a human being, but you could somehow get a diagnosis or a piece of advice and maybe suggestions of a drug you might take or something.
Sure, and it's not a fantasy. That's happening today.